Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, Ron Rivera stepped to the podium today, and this was the first time since Monday that we heard from the head coach. He had not been feeling well this week. He talked about it during his presser today that, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, he was not feeling his best, felt a lot better today, was not at practice on Wednesday, was at practice on Thursday, but briefly, and did not address the media. So it was good to hear from the coach. It was good to see him. He was in great spirits, said he feels better, and plans on coaching on Sunday. But that's not the lead story, okay? The lead story is what he said, and normally we just save that for in other news, but being that it's Friday and this was a pretty salacious piece of information, and look, it's nothing damaging or earth-shattering, but it's the first time we've heard Rivera actually say this. You can think this, but to actually say it is a totally different thing, and it kind of changes the way you view everything as well. And so Ron Rivera talked about how, and this was a question posed to him by Pete Haley of NBC Washington Sports, who pretty much said, hey, how do you kind of balance the intersection between, trying to change the culture and, prepare this team for the future versus having a chance to win this season and potentially looking around and, without saying it, the division, because it's so bad, you may have a chance to win the division and make it to the postseason. How do you kind of balance that intersection of those two potentially meeting? And Rivera, to which he said, yeah, I mean, there is that thought that, there could be a situation this year. And he said these next couple of weeks will really kind of tell the story because, and he's right, because you look at Dallas's schedule, you look at our schedule, and the next 2 weeks are pretty daunting, especially with the injury situation that we have. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But looking at the injury situation, couple that with the teams that are on the schedule the next couple of weeks in Baltimore and Los Angeles Rams, you're going to be pretty hard-pressed to find many people thinking that Washington is going to be able to get a victory in either one of those contests. So you're essentially staring at 1-4 at that moment. And depending on what Dallas does, because we look at the Eagles and say, even if the Eagles try to catch lightning in a bottle, they've got a tough schedule of their own with some really good teams that we just don't see them winning games against. They're already 0-2-1 as it is, and if they continue to drop ball games, we know the Giants aren't a good team, so we more likely than not, those two teams will be around. It's Dallas that you have to really concern yourself with if you're talking about this division getting out of hand and any of the teams actually running away with this divisional lead and hiding. And it's really Dallas that you're concerned with, and they haven't gotten off to a great start. Obviously, both Dallas and ourselves are tied atop the division at 1-2. Dallas has Cleveland at home this week, a team we just saw last week and weren't that impressed and thought we could have beaten them if not for 5 turnovers. So I expect Dallas to go home and win that football game. And then you look and see what Dallas does in the coming weeks. We have the Cowboys coming up here in about a month's time. And so between now and then, if Dallas creates separation in this division, then you start looking towards the future. Then you start saying, hey, let's see what everybody's got. Now you say, okay, no matter what happens, if Dwayne has a 3-interception game, we don't care. We want to see what this guy can do. How can he overcome some of these obstacles? How can he get better? How can he progress in Scott Turner's offense? How can we put more on his plate? How does he handle us putting more on his plate? How does he bounce back from a rough outing? How does he handle success? Those types of things. You start to look at that and you start to kind of take the full spectrum and scope of things. If this team doesn't have a chance to make the postseason, which I didn't think was possible before the season started. But as we look at this division, Philadelphia's bad, Dallas hasn't gotten off to a great start, and all of a sudden, things change. And when you have an opportunity to potentially make the postseason, that supersedes trying to get everyone on one page and trying to get the young guys up to speed and wanting to see what this guy can do in this situation and that guy can do in that situation. Everything changes when the division starts to fall into your lap, essentially, and you have a realistic opportunity. And if Dallas continues to struggle, and we continue to struggle, but the reason we're struggling is at the quarterback position specifically, and Ron didn't say this, but, the question was aimed at essentially getting to, hey, look, if this is a season in which the division is bad like it was last year, and you look up in week 8 and you're right in the mix, but you're not getting what you're looking for out of the quarterback position, and really that goes for any position across the board, but for all intents and purposes, nobody cares about, safety. And a lot of you are like, hey, we need to bench Troy Apke, but that's not going to move the needle. We're not going to win or lose games because Troy Apke is starting at safety, even though we need to upgrade the safety position. I'm convinced of that right now. However, you got to make do with what you have, okay? But that's nor here nor there. At the end of the day, the quarterback position is the one that makes the most difference. And that's the position that is the difference between, in terms of getting quality play, between you going 5-11 and you going 9-7, 10-6. And we talk about that fine line in this league between 6-10 and 10-6. There are a lot of different factors that go into it. Injuries being among the biggest, but so is the play at the quarterback position. I mean, it's not rocket science. When you look at the Packers in the seasons in which they've struggled, you can directly correlate that to the injury to Aaron Rodgers. No Aaron Rodgers, Packers stink. It's not hard, okay? This is a league that is really predicated on how good is your quarterback anyway. If you've got one of the upper echelon quarterbacks, more likely than not, you're going to be playing some postseason football. You'll be playing in January, maybe in February if you're lucky and the ball bounces your way. But we're not at that point yet, okay? However, if we look up and it's November 4th and we're one game out of first place, or we're tied for first place and we're not getting what we need out of the quarterback position, or Dwayne's coming off another one of these performances that we saw in week 3, in week 7, or week 8, there could be impetus for a change. And that's essentially what Rivera said, is that, hey, we're not at that point now, but obviously we get down the road and things are still where they are now in terms of we're in first place, or we're in a position to potentially make the postseason. Maybe we'll start having to think about making some moves and doing some things that we really didn't think were going to be on the table before the season started. So this is the first time Rivera has essentially said, hey, at some point this season, could be, we may have to make some interesting decisions that aren't in line with what we said in the offseason, which is, hey, we're building for the future. We're looking to get guys snaps. We want to find out what everybody is capable of doing. We're looking to build this thing for the future. Winning now takes precedence over the future when you can actually taste it and grab it and reach out and touch it. When you're projected to be a bad football team and you take this job and you understand that there are a lot of obstacles in your way that you probably aren't going to be able to clear, and there are clear and definitive better teams in the division, over top of you, you understand how you have to navigate things. And you try to set yourself up to be one of those teams in the future. But when everything around you isn't what you thought it was, and everybody else, you're supposed to struggle. We're supposed to struggle. The Giants are supposed to struggle. Okay? That wasn't a secret going into the season. The Giants and Washington were supposed to be the two worst teams in this division. They were supposed to be fighting to see who would finish in third place and who would stay out of the cellar. It was the Eagles and Cowboys that were supposed to quickly separate themselves from the pack, and then those two would be fighting it out as to who would win the division. That's not what's happening right now. Things did not go as planned the way everybody else set it up. So now Rivera is saying, hey, we don't know what this is going to be. It ultimately may be that somebody runs away with this division, not us. And if that's the case, we'll continue on the path that we're on right now. But if not, if things continue the way that they are right now, and we're in this thing 7-8 weeks in, and players at specific positions aren't getting it done, and we think there may be someone else that can give us a spark, We may have to go in a different direction and maybe veer off of that, hey, we're building for the future narrative and game plan that we've been on. That's interesting. That is really interesting from Ron Rivera, because that's when you start taking all of those comments that he's made in the past and you start bringing those back to the forefront. Like, we'll know when to say when. We'll know when that time is. We'll know when that cutoff point happens. That cutoff point could be sped up. That process could be, it could be accelerated. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyhow, let's get to in other news. So I pretty much gave you the biggest, juiciest topic from Rivera's presser today. And Sam Mills III spoke as well, the defensive line coach. I told you every week we get a new positional coach. We've had already quarterbacks coach Ken Zampese. We've had the linebackers coach Steve Russ. We've had the running backs coach Randy Jordan, and now we got defensive line coach Sam Mills III. I assume we'll be getting defensive backs coach Chris Harris here in a bit. But Sam Mills III had some interesting things to say. We'll get to some of his comments here in a bit, but I want to get to the injury report for both teams heading into week number 4. This is the final report that you'll get prior to the game. We'll find out a little bit more tomorrow as to who will play, who won't play. Some of these guys will take it all the way up until game time in terms of a decision being made. However, you can usually draw inferences. I've been doing that for you every week this season, and we've been pretty much spot on. I think we may have missed on 1 or 2 guys max where we might have thought someone was going to play, and really it was the Eagles game week 1. I thought Miles Sanders and the left tackle or right tackle Lane Johnson were going to play, and I was wrong about both of those guys. Neither of them even made the trip to Washington. Meanwhile, and I think every other prediction that we've made about guys who haven't practiced or been on a limited basis, we've been pretty much spot on. So it's not hard to kind of pinpoint what's going to happen when you connect the dots. But some guys practice, like we saw heading into week 2, Kendall Fuller and Thomas Davis both fully practiced multiple times during the week and still weren't active in week 2. So you never know. Let's take a look at the injury report for week number 4. We start with Washington. Look how long this list is. Remember when we were lauding and praising Washington for having an abnormal list for this football team anyway, when there was only 4 guys on the injury report heading into week 2 versus Arizona? We were stunned. This looks more like it, okay? This is what Washington generally looks like in terms of their injury report heading into a week's game. And so we start with Cole Holcomb. He was limited on Thursday and Friday, but again, he's going to be out. And I told you I didn't think he was going to play again this week. And remember, I said 2 weeks ago, why not just put Cole Holcomb on IR? It doesn't seem like Cole Holcomb is going to play anytime soon. He had not practiced in 2 weeks. So I didn't know why they didn't just free up that roster spot and put Cole Holcomb on IR. He would have been able to come off of IR next week, which is probably going to be the first time that he will actually be able to play. I expect to see Cole Holcomb back in the lineup if there are no setbacks next week. But he got hurt in week 1. He would have been right coming off of IR next week, which is when I think he'll be ready for action anyway. So I guess they didn't know. They wanted to see how he responded. They didn't want to put him on IR and then he was ready to go after, a week and a half of being sidelined, and they just didn't want to take the risk. If he could come back a game sooner than putting him on IR, they wanted to see if that could take place, but it didn't. He's not playing in week number 4. Ryan Anderson was a full participant yesterday and today. He's listed as questionable. He's going to play, okay? Steven Sims Jr., I told you I was worried about him. He did not look good in the game last week versus Cleveland. He probably should have sat out that game, to be honest with you, but I think they were kind of nervous as to what they were going to get from Isaiah Wright. And once Isaiah Wright showed them what he showed them on Sunday, now they're more comfortable with Steven Sims healing up and not having to rush back. He didn't practice at all this week. He wasn't even at practice the entire week. And so he is out of the week 4 contest versus Baltimore. Some great news here, though. Dontrell Inman, with his wrist injury, was a full participant yesterday. We talked about that. And I wanted to see how he would follow that up with practice on Friday. Another full go. He's not even on the injury report at this point. He is definitely going to play. Chase Young, groin, didn't practice all week. I told you there was no chance in hell he was playing this week, and I don't think he's playing next week either. Ron Rivera said in his presser that he is day to day. Try week to week, okay? I don't see him playing this week, and I don't see him playing next week either. I think the first time we see Chase Young back in a Washington uniform, and I told you this when the injury first happened, was week 6 versus the Giants, which is probably the next time we actually have a realistic chance of winning a ball game anyway. Tackle Morgan Moses, hip injury. That was a problem last week. Remember, he was on the injury report last week. Did not practice on Wednesday. However, full participant yesterday, full participant today. So you feel confident that Morgan Moses, and I told you this guy, much like Ryan Kerrigan, is an Iron Man. He's going to play and play well. Ryan Kerrigan, non-injury related. We really don't need to go through this. He'll be playing on Sunday. Sadiq Charles was interesting because I thought after the re-aggravation of the injury last week landed him on the injury report, I thought it'd be a while before we saw Sadiq Charles. But here we are, and he's been a full go all week, and now he is not on the injury report for Sunday. So Sadiq Charles back in the mix and ready to compete. Terry McLaurin was the one that is really scary. We talked about this yesterday. He was limited. Today, he did not practice at all, which is never a good sign when a guy practices on a limited basis and then follows that up with no practice, which means he probably was a little sore today. He was being seen riding the bike next to Chase Young and doing some light workouts with Young on the side field. That's never a good look for a guy that we're really counting on offensively. This leads me to believe that Terry McLaurin could be a scratch on Sunday. I'm holding out hope. I've got my fingers crossed. But if you tell me there's a chance he could make his thigh injury worse by playing, look, we're already being sacrificed to the Ravens anyway. No need in adding more injury to insult. If Terry can't go or you think he can exacerbate this injury by playing, there's no reason to put him at risk. We've got other games that we can actually win down the road, so no need in Terry McLaurin going up there and suiting up if he can't be healthy, and we can't feel confident that if nothing else flares up, that this won't get worse. So I'm really looking like, to me, we could be without our top 2 wide receivers in this game in Terry McLaurin and Steven Sims. If you thought we already were a little short on weapons for Dwayne Haskins, it could be a lot worse on Sunday, pending the status of Terry McLaurin. Kevin Pierre-Louis just showed up on the injury report today as he did not practice due to an illness. So that's something to keep an eye on. Last week, Thomas Davis had an illness and didn't practice. And I think it was 2 weeks ago against Arizona, he had an illness at the end of the week and ultimately did not play. But remember, he was coming off of an injury anyway. So that's interesting because Lewis is the fastest linebacker that we have currently active on the football team with Cole Holcomb not playing. You take him and his speed off the field with Lamar Jackson staring at the defense across the line of scrimmage. That's another guy you really can ill afford to lose, especially with already being down an athlete like Chase Young on the defensive side of the football. So that's something to keep an eye on. He is questionable along with Terry McLaurin. And then here was a big one, a bombshell today. For those of you who have been on the Bryce Love needs an opportunity train, Bryce Love knee has swelled up yet again. And the prognosis is that he's been overworked at practice with the show team, as Rivera likes to call it, aka the show. Let's go with show team. I can't remember what we used to call the team that was practicing the team you're playing's plays. But in any event, Bryce Love has been put on IR. Okay, not the season-ending IR, but the 3-week IR. Rivera said that his knee injury and the swelling should be calmed down in 3 weeks, which is the IR that they put him on. And so Bryce Love seems to be struggling with the knee that he had surgery on. And so this could be a situation that lingers for the entire season. And it's tough because everyone doesn't heal the same. Bryce Love seems to be struggling with that knee injury as he's been placed on IR. And the Washington football team does not have another running back on the practice squad. So for all intents and purposes, you're staring at a situation where you got 3 healthy backs. They're probably going to have to go out and sign someone in the interim to replace Bryce Love because they don't have another guy should an injury or two crop up at this point. So that's interesting. They promoted Jarrett Norris, the linebacker, to the active roster to take the spot of Bryce Love. So that's another roster move to keep in mind. But as we get to the Ravens side of things, remember, they had a laundry list yesterday. This list looks a lot slimmer than it did yesterday. This list was about 11, 12 players yesterday. It's been trimmed down to about 8. But as you can see, wide receiver Chris Moore, cornerback Jimmy Smith, and tackle Ronnie Stanley all did not practice in practice, did not participate in practice today. And Ronnie Stanley has not participated in practice all week. That's the one that sticks out to me, their left tackle. If he can't go, that's a good thing for Montez Sweat. I think he's going to be double teamed anyway. But if Ronnie Stanley can't go, that's a boost to the defense, giving them a chance to maybe have a little bit of success against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. Jimmy Smith is another guy that they really utilize at the cornerback position. If he can't go, that could also help what is a struggling Washington wide receiver core right now. Limited participation for LJ Fort at linebacker, defensive back Anthony Levine, defensive tackle Justin Matabuke, and defensive end Derek Wolfe, all limited in their participation on Friday. I expect Derek Wolfe, who is the biggest contributor out of that group, to play, and we'll see what happens. But none of those guys that had limited participation are massive contributors outside of Derek Wolfe at this point. So, and LJ Ford is a guy that gets significant snaps, but he's not a real key contributor like Derek Wolfe is. So, the Ravens are pretty healthy, is essentially what I'm telling you. They don't have any guys on this list that, outside of Ronnie Stanley, that are true difference makers. They're raring to go. They're ready and raring to go, and we're in trouble. That's essentially what that means. So as we get back to In Other Words, and we step up to the mic and listen to what Rivera and defensive line coach Sam Mills III had to say. I've pretty much given you the meat and potatoes of what Rivera had to say. He talked about the injury situation with Bryce Love. He talked about, there is one piece of information that he gave about the running backs. He feels like both running backs, J.D. McKissic and Antonio Gibson, are about to break out, that they're about to have some massive games and become bigger fixtures on the offensive side of the football. If you've watched the film, then you know that I've been advocating for guys to get more opportunities, especially J.D. McKissic, who I think is a mismatch nightmare that they're just not utilizing well enough. Neither is Antonio Gibson, I believe, being utilized to his full capacity. But again, he's a rookie. You don't want to put too much on his plate. They talked about doing that early in the season and not wanting to overload him. And so as we get deeper into the season, I think they need to find ways, creative ways, to get these guys more involved. I just feel like there is so much more to their games, so much more versatility that these guys offer that we're not tapping into right now. We're strictly using these guys as running backs, and that's not why we kept them. If you just wanted a running back, Adrian Peterson should still be here. So if the reason you cut ties with Adrian Peterson is because he wasn't versatile enough, he didn't offer you the kind of diversity and the ability to catch it out of the backfield and run some of these routes that these two guys offer you in Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic, then I need to see that. I need to see that ability from them. I need you to utilize them in those ways to make us feel good about moving on from AD, because he's playing good football for the Detroit Lions right now. So if I'm to believe Ron Rivera that these guys are going to break out and I actually have them as part of the keys to the game offensively, It'd be nice to see them get involved, especially with Terry McLaurin potentially being on the shelf along with Steven Sims. You're going to need other guys to step up. No time like the present. So Rivera talked about those guys potentially having a breakout game here in the near future. He didn't say if it was going to happen in week 4, but he feels like it's on the cusp of happening. It'd be great if it happened in week number 4. But you get to defensive line coach Sam Mills III, and he talked about the defensive line, talked about how you can't replace, Matt Ioannidis and Chase Young. It's got to be a collective effort, especially when you're talking about Ioannidis. The prevailing thought among media members is that, because of this injury, Tim Settle's going to get a lot more snaps, and he's going to have to fill that Matt Ioannidis role. Nobody on the team does what Matt Ioannidis does from the defensive tackle position. Nobody. Okay, let me repeat that again. Nobody is Matthew Ioannidis. Okay, there's only one guy that can win consistently against one-on-one inside at defensive tackle, and that's Matthew Ioannidis. None of these other guys possess the ability to win like Ioannidis does. And so Tim Settle isn't going to replace him. Neither can Jonathan Allen or Daron Payne. So from that standpoint, there's nothing you can do. But he said, look, it's a collective effort. Tim Settle is a good football player, and he's going to get more opportunities. We just want him to be himself, play to his best capabilities, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. But he said, this is a collective effort. That means we need more out of Jonathan Allen. We need more out of Daron Payne, and we need more out of Tim Settle. Because there is no Matthew Ioannidis, they talked about James Smith-Williams and his versatility, but at the end of the day, he's a rookie. There's only so much you can expect from a guy like him or Nate Orchard, who has limited experience in his NFL career getting real meaningful snaps. So I think that the defense obviously takes a massive hit not having Young or Ioannidis at their disposal, but Young will be back eventually, but Ioannidis won't. They've got to find a way to circumvent that, and it starts in week 4 versus the Ravens. We'll see how they do inside in terms of getting after the quarterback. He also talked about the continued growth and development of Montez Sweat, which I think we've all been impressed with. I highlighted it on the film. Montez Sweat was an absolute animal in week 4 versus Cleveland. They could not block him, and he dominated thoroughly to the point where I said this was his best performance of his career. I haven't seen Montez Sweat be that violent, that aggressive, that physical, and that impactful in his career to this point. And they feel like he's really starting to get it, that the light bulb is coming on. This adjustment to him, putting his hand in the dirt on every single snap, is something that he's really starting to adapt to, and he's starting to excel and take off with. And if this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to get more of this from Montez Sweat moving forward, it's not just Chase Young anymore. It's Chase Young and Montez Sweat. And I feel really good about Chase Young and Montez Sweat if this is the Montez Sweat we're getting moving forward. And so, Sam Mills III talked about that as well. So that was the extent of what he talked about along the defensive line. Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the final outcome of this football game. So I've talked all week about how this team is at a great disadvantage this week, playing a Baltimore Ravens team that is the second best team in the AFC, and you could argue a top 5 team in the league overall. And so we have nothing for them. We got nothing for them. But this is why you play the games, right? Right? On paper, we are overmatched, and this should be a thorough ass whooping of the highest degree. But again, this is why you show up and you play these games. And so we'll go through what we have to do on both sides of the football quickly before I give you my score and more to end the show. So when the Ravens are on offense versus our defense, here are my keys to the game. You got to slow down their rushing attack. I think that's the first thing, because to me, the Ravens are the most dominant rush team in the league because of Lamar Jackson's legs. This is a team that routinely runs for over 200 yards rushing in contests like it's nothing. When you look up and you see the Ravens rush for 257 yards, you don't even bat an eye, because that's what they do. Lamar can get you for 90 easy, and then you look up and Mark Ingram has 107, and then J.K. Dobbins has 35, and Gus Edwards has another 49, and you look up, and they've got 277 yards rushing on the day, and you're like, wow, that was easy. Easy money. So you got to slow them down. We're not going to stop their rushing attack cold turkey. But if you can slow it down, you force them, and here's why slowing down their run game is so imperative. Because when you slow down their run game, you force them to throw it on third down. When they have a two-way go of it on third down, when it's 3rd and 3, and we consistently allow teams in 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4, the Ravens 3rd and 4 is a rush down for them still. Okay, with Lamar Jackson's legs, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 is still run territory for them. And we've been in 3rd and 3 and 3rd and short all season long. Every single game, it seems like teams have had 3rd and short situations. Hard to get off the field in those situations. So you got to limit their ability to gash you in the run game because you want Lamar Jackson throwing the football. That's something that he's still evolving at. And you feel like you've got a better chance with him throwing from the pocket than you do with him scrambling and extending plays with his legs. Limit action Jackson. Okay, it's the same thing we talked about with Kyler Murray. It's the same thing we're talking about with Lamar Jackson, but you got to take it to the umpteenth degree. This is a little bit more because we're talking about a league MVP here. We're talking about a guy that can take over a game by himself and destroy you single-handedly. So in order to have any chance in hell, you've got to limit Lamar Jackson and his ability to hurt you in this game. If he beats you with his arm, you tip your cap and say, hey, Lamar, man, you've gotten a lot better. Best of luck to you the rest of the season. You got us. But if you allow him to do you with his arm and his legs, then that's shame on you because you know what's coming. You have to take something away. And if I'm Washington, I'm taking away his ability to hurt me on the ground. Now, that's easier said than done. Not many have tried. Most have failed, okay? Not many have been successful at limiting Lamar Jackson's ability on the ground. So we're going to give it the old college try. We're going to give it a shot, but you got to slow him down if you want any chance to win. Slow down action Jackson. Limit explosive plays. The Ravens feast off of chunk plays, whether it's on the ground or through the air, whether it's Lamar Jackson's legs, whether it's Mark Ingram's legs on the ground, whether it's Lamar Jackson throwing it to his tight end and getting a chunk play, or Hollywood Brown, getting a big play and getting behind the defense. They've got speed everywhere. Now they've got Devin Duvernay out there making big plays. They've got a ton of speed everywhere on the field offensively. You have to limit the explosive plays, force them to go 12, 13 plays, and just hope that something goes wrong. That's what you should do for every team, but it's imperative against the Ravens because they are such a dynamic offense with a quarterback that can be erratic at times. You want to force them to have to go the length of the field and hope that maybe on 3rd and 6, Lamar's looking for his tight end over the middle of the field, throws it 2 feet over his head right to your safety, and you get a break. Like, that's what you have to force. You cannot allow them to have chunk plays, or this could be quick work for them on Sunday afternoon. You have to have third down defense be successful. You know, we struggled in third downs in week 2 versus Arizona. We struggled early on against the Eagles on third downs. We were a lot better early in the game for the first 3 quarters. Really, we were really exceptional on third downs against the Browns. And then in the 4th quarter, something changed. Something happened, and we no longer were capable of getting off the field on third downs. And it helped lead to 17 unanswered points in the 4th quarter by the Cleveland Browns. So third down defense is imperative. You have to be able to get off the field, whether it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 22. We've got to find a way to get off the field on third downs. Again, against this Ravens rush attack and this Ravens aggressive offense. And they like to go for it on 4th down as well. It's going to be tough to get off the field unless it's 4th and 10 or 4th and 12. If it's 4th and 3, I can see Jim Harbaugh going for it. He's been really analytics based these last couple of years. So, and against a team like us where he's probably not going to respect us all that much, similar to what you saw against Arizona when they were going for it, 4th and 1, deep in their own territory at their own 35-yard line. They didn't respect us. So they said, what are they going to do? Score a touchdown if we go for it and don't get it? They're probably going to disrespect us too. And the only way to limit that disrespect is to force them into 4th and 7s, 4th and 8s. If it's 3rd and 12, you can't give up 7 yards. And then at the end of the play, hold up your little fist like, oh, it's 4th down. They don't give a shit. It's 4th and 5 and they're going to go for it. And more likely than not, they're going to convert. If it's 3rd and 12, it needs to stay 3rd and 12, or it needs to be 4th and 8. And they have to then think to themselves, nah, we shouldn't go for this. This isn't smart. 4th and 5, 4th and 4, 4th and 3, they're going to roll the dice against us. We don't want to be in those situations unless the defense is playing top-notch ball. And without Chase Young and Matt Ioannidis, I think that's highly, highly unlikely. You got to tackle in this game. The tackling has not been great the last couple of weeks. Kyler Murray embarrassed us 2 weeks ago, and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt made us look like high school 10th graders last week. It was ridiculous, especially in the second half, primarily the fourth quarter. We couldn't tackle to save our lives. There were plays where Troy Apke, he's flying all over the place. Landon Collins was abysmal. I showed that in the film. He was abysmal last week. He was an embarrassment, was Landon Collins, and that tackling display or lack thereof that he put on in week number 3. We've got to tackle better. Jimmy Moreland on a 4th down last week, I showed that in the film, missed a tackle that would have brought the Browns up short of the 1st down and given the Washington football team great field position. Instead, the Browns end up getting points on that drive. We've got to tackle better. We haven't tackled well since week 1, honestly speaking. We haven't tackled well since week 1. And coincidentally enough, that was the last time we were home. Maybe home is where the heart is this season. We'll see. But we got to tackle better. Force field goals. Every time a team gets in the red zone, they can't get in the end zone. Okay? Just because a drive starts in your territory or a team ventures into the red zone inside the 20 doesn't mean they have to get to pay dirt. We have to be able to force teams to kick field goals. The last 2 weeks, that's been almost impossible for us. Once the ball gets on our side of the 30-yard line, teams are like, oh, we smell the end zone. Kyler Murray was in there a couple of times 2 weeks ago. We couldn't get stops. We couldn't force them to kick field goals. Last week against the Browns, it was impossible to keep Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb out of the end zone. All right? They were consistently getting in the end zone. We didn't make Baker Mayfield beat us. We let the running backs beat us. They got into the red zone. They got into the end zone. And so we've got to force field goal attempts. That's what the good defenses do. You can bend, but you shouldn't break. We've been very breakable of late. Got to find a way to force some field goal attempts. Create some turnovers. That's an understatement. But we didn't create any turnovers last week. We created one the week before that. If you're going to give the football away, you better be getting some back in return. We've got to take care of the football, but it'd be nice to get great field position, especially when you've got an offense that's struggling to put together 12-play drives, that's struggling to go 75 yards. How about creating a short field for them? You did it in week 2, and they squandered it. I understand that, but you got to keep giving them opportunities. We got to create at least a turnover in this game. It'd be nice to have multiple turnovers, but got to do something there. Now, when the Ravens D is on the field versus our offense, here are the keys to the game. Avoid a slow start. It's the same thing we said last week. We achieved that last week. We got to do it again this week. That doesn't change. From here on out, for the remainder of the season, until the slow start thing isn't a thing, that's got to be the first thing at the top of the list. Because if you fall down 17-0, then you don't have a chance really to win the game. We don't have an offense that's capable of coming back from 17 down. Now, we've got a defense that can help us like they did in week 1, but you don't want to count on that, okay? There isn't any guarantees to the defense creating turnovers. The only guarantee you get when you're down 17-0 is that your offense is going to get the football back and have a chance to score. You're not guaranteed to have your defense force a turnover that sets you up 1st and 10 from the opposition's 19-yard line, like we did against the Eagles. That's not guaranteed to happen. What is guaranteed is that your offense is going to get a chance to score. And right now, we're not equipped with enough offensive firepower to go and overcome a 17-point deficit. Speaking of offensive firepower, the next key to the game, take deep shots. This offense has been a dink and dunk fest over the first 3 weeks of the season, and it's getting old fast. Okay, when teams look at us on film, they're playing up to the line of scrimmage. They don't respect us, and nor should they. We haven't threatened anybody at any point this season. As I told you already, we don't have any gains of 30 yards or more this season. No chunk plays for us for the most part. We've got a couple of 20-yard gains, and all of them are Terry McLaurin with the exception of one, and that's an Antonio Gibson run earlier in the season. Well, I'll take that back. Steven Sims popped a couple of wide receiver screens for 20 yards, and he had a corner route for a 20-yard gain. But that's besides the point. We don't have enough chunk plays. No 30 yards, no 40 yards plus in this season, and that's insane. We're not throwing the football air yards wise, 30, 40 yards down the field. Everything is short to intermediate. And a lot of that is on the shoulders of Dwayne Haskins. This ball, there are opportunities to drive the football vertical, and we're not doing it. We have to, even if we don't complete them, they have to understand that there's the threat of Terry McLaurin or Steven Sims. Even though these guys may not play in the game, we know Steven Sims is not. But I'm just talking about in general. There needs to be a threat that, hey, we can get behind you if you fall asleep behind the wheel. Right now, there is no threat. So you can come up and be as aggressive as you like because there is no threat of Washington taking the top off of your defense. And we got guys that can run. So that's inexcusable. We got to take some shots this week. It's mandatory that we stress the defense and make them back up and respect our ability to run, or else they're going to come up, play tight defense, and it's going to be tough for us to get anything going like it's been the first 3 weeks of the season. Get Dwayne into a rhythm early. We talked about that last week. I thought Scott Turner actually did a really good job of doing that with a lot of the short passing game. You got to do it again this week. Don't wait till 3rd and 8 to be the first time you attempt to pass with Dwayne in this game. If you're going to run it on first down, I would preferably like to see a run on or a throw on first down. And if it's incomplete, you run it on 2nd down. And if it's 3rd and 8, so be it. Okay? But what I don't want to do is run it on first down for 1 yard, run it again on 2nd down. Now it's 3rd and 7. And now this is the first pass of the game is a Dwayne Haskins 3rd and 7 attempt. I don't want to see that. And we didn't get that last game. I'd like to continue the trend that we saw last game of trying to get Dwayne into a rhythm early. I think that's important. Protect the ball and limit mistakes. I can't stress this enough. I thought this didn't need to be said, but after last week's game, I think we need to say that moving forward. The cliche is win the turnover battle, but after last week, you got to take it a step further because 5 turnovers gets you beat just about 99.99% of the time. And to boot, you have mistakes like Morgan Moses, who has been exceptional this season, with a holding penalty at the 3-yard line. Now it's 2nd and goal from the 13, and you're going to ultimately have to settle for a field goal. Like those types of mistakes, they get you beat too. You need 7s, and you can't have penalties on 2nd and 9 and have a holding penalty, and now it's 2nd and 19. Cam Sims, you can't illegally block someone on a pick play, and all of a sudden a 3rd and 2 is now 3rd and 12. Like, we've got to be smart, and we have to limit the mistakes. We can't put ourselves in some long down and distance situations. We can't play behind the sticks. We have to be on schedule because right now we're not getting chunk plays. So it's mandatory that we get we stay ahead of the sticks and we stay on schedule. If we're off schedule at all, we're in trouble because our offense isn't dynamic right now. And finally, we have to throw the football to the running backs more. It is imperative that we get these guys more involved. We don't have enough weapons to not have these guys involved in the pass game. And with Terry McLaurin and Steven Sims potentially out of this game, you're going to have to put even more emphasis on getting these running backs the football in the passing game. And when I watched the tape last week of Baltimore taking on Kansas City, I saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire eat these guys alive out of the backfield. And I'm thinking, why can't our backs do something similar to that? He had 5 catches for 70 yards. All right. He was outstanding in that game. 14 yards per reception for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We got guys that are similar in their skill set to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We should be able to throw the football against the Ravens linebackers. So I want to see us, I talked about exploiting Arizona's linebackers in space and in coverage. We didn't do it. We're going to get another opportunity versus Baltimore. Are we going to take advantage of it? And are we going to try to get our backs involved in the passing game? I think it is imperative that that is done in week number 4. I said all of that to say this. We don't stand a chance in this ball game, okay? We are going to get clobbered. 37-17 is the final score of this game. And I'll tell you quickly how we get there. Washington hangs tight with the Ravens early as the Ravens score 10 first quarter points. Washington scores a field goal early stages of the second quarter to make it 10-3. We're hanging tough. And then the Ravens explode for 14 points in the second quarter, take a 24-3 lead at half, come out on cruise control in the second half. And this is all powered by Lamar Jackson, who is going to total 327 total yards of offense, including 202 yards passing and another 125 on the ground for a total of 327 total yards of offense. He's going to destroy us in this game, and they are going to cruise to a 37-17 victory. And it's not going to be pretty. I'm hoping to limit the mistakes. I'm hoping we see some good things from Dwayne and some steps forward. Ron said today that Dwayne's had some positive practices this week, has looked good, has looked sharp. He said that he communicated to Dwayne that he's got to be better or else, and he thinks that Dwayne has gotten the message. So we'll see if that transfers over to the game or not. However, this isn't the week for that. You know, this is the week that you say, okay, take whatever happens with a grain of salt, because this team is much better than us. We're outclassed. We're outmanned. We're so banged up that we needed all hands on deck for this one. And we are at half mast right now. It just doesn't look good for the Washington football team. So that's my prediction, score, and more. Leave yours down in the comment section. Can't wait to read your predictions for this game as we go ahead and get out of here. I thank you guys for joining me on this show. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys over the weekend when we break this game down in its entirety on the Washington Football Overtime program directly after that game meets its conclusion. Look forward to chopping it up with you there. Hopefully I'm wrong and somehow, some way we're able to come out with a victory, but I wouldn't hold my breath, and neither should you. If you're out there and you're watching this channel or this program and you haven't already done so, what are you waiting on? Subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Go ahead, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And also hit that like button so you can show your man Louie T some support. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Again, leave your score and prediction and more down in the comment section. Cannot wait to read all of your responses. And also remember, it's October, which means it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that means we've got some new merch available for you. Got some Susan G. Komen Louie T Network shirts available in pink. So if you want to help donate, because some of your proceeds from the purchase of a shirt go to the Susan G. Komen Foundation. And we're looking to continue to help that fight against breast cancer. So if you want to support your man Louie T and at the same time help support the fight against breast cancer, go to the website down in the description for the print champs and hit up the site, and there you will find the Susan G. Komen exclusive limited edition Louie T Network shirts available in just the month of October. So with that being said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you guys to enjoy the rest of your weekend. Look forward to chopping it up with you in the near future. I'm your man Louie T. This has been Washington Football Nightly. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 30.